it is finally time, as promised last week, to talk about Way of the Hunter. A lot of you guys have been asking my opinions on it, and some recent information really caught my eye, so I thought it was finally time to take a look at the game, with the release on next-gen consoles and PC being less than 2 weeks away. Now, of course, we know from the content released on the THQ Nordic YouTube channel that there are two maps, one based in the Pacific Northwest of North America, and one based in Europe, and more specifically Transylvania. I'll link all these videos in the description so you can see them in their entirety, but there has been a ton of coverage on other YouTube channels going over things like species lists and stuff like that. For that reason, we won't go over each individual species here, but if you do want to know more, I highly recommend Mel's Gaming. She has great coverage of all things Way of the Hunter, so if you want to check out her channel, it'll be linked below as well. So what I want to talk about today is the game as a whole, based on everything we've seen thus far. I think there are a few key features in successful hunting games, and as I see it, Way of the Hunter hits on all of them. First of all, open world, and more specifically than that, immersive environments. From Steam, we know that the maps are approximately 55 square miles each, and based on the trailers, there seems to be plenty to explore. Also, these mountains, I cannot get over how perfect these look for what they're trying to represent. This looks like home for chamois, and that is incredibly important. If I feel like I'm hunting where I would in real life, that'll keep me coming back, and if this particular terrain is any indication, I think the immersion aspect from an environment standpoint is hit dead on. The next thing is animal models and their realism. That includes antlers or horns, and once again, mostly everything I've seen from Way of the Hunter looks good. From the whitetail to the red deer to the moose, I think it's quite clear they've been very detail-oriented in developing realistic animals as well. I don't think I need to talk on this point much. Realistic-looking game animals are crucial to long replayability in games, and in my opinion, that has been achieved here, but that leads me into the main reason I wanted to make this video. A couple of days ago, Nine Rocks Games released a video talking about the complex trophy system in Way of the Hunter. That, coupled with some other recent information, really got my attention. Firstly, trophies are generated based on age and fitness of animals. A lot of you guys know that I think animal age really helps with immersion and realism, so this information is really encouraging. But when both age and fitness are taken into account, that really brings a realistic twist into the game. Now, fitness was also described as genetic potential in the Dev Diary number 2 video, and that is where things get really interesting. It was also said that if you want to create a hunting heaven, you should focus on harvesting low fitness males. That is why I wanted to make this video in the first place. Being able to work to improve the genetics of your map by shooting lower genetic potential animals is something that is done in real life. Shooting cull bucks is something you've maybe heard of, with poor genetics to improve the overall quality of the herd is something you see very often, and being in charge of your own in-game herd in that way is really cool. The best part is though, there is nothing limiting gameplay here. If someone wants to just go and shoot every animal they see and have a good time, the game can be played that way. If someone wants to meticulously work towards creating the ultimate herd, that seems to be possible as well. Combining that information with some recent details revealed in the Way of the Hunter Discord, such as confirmation that animals will die of old age, which really brings a realism factor in, you couldn't simply line your map with giant deer. You'd have to be aware that they can die off, and it was clarified. You're not going to find a carcass, which that would be cool, but I don't think that's necessary to the immersion factor. All of this together though, creates a very realistic feel from a distance, and of course we won't know for sure until the release in a couple weeks, but this information specifically really makes it feel real to me. Speaking from real life experience with whitetail deer for instance, you can pass a younger deer with good potential in hopes it'll age and grow. However, there's no guarantee you encounter that buck again. Now, I'm not sure how likely it is that you never encounter the same animal again once they've aged in the game, but 55 square miles is a big map. I really think, at least early on, there will be a legitimate reason to decide, do I take this buck now, or do I pass it and risk never seeing it again? At least until maybe more of the maps are figured out, and maybe once you get a better idea of the feel of the game. But that is a question real-life hunters often ask, and I'll be honest, this might be the only game in recent memory that could cause you to ask that "do I shoot it now or do I pass it" question. Now, you may have heard me mention the deer age. This is based off a Discord message from one of the community managers who stated in response to a question regarding populations and whether they would be new every hunt or carry over, they carry over and they age. Now, I'll be honest, when I first saw this, I was actually worried, extremely intrigued, but worried. In theory, depending on how aging works, someone could leave the game running every night while they sleep and wake up to animals age further, along with other potential issues. Dying of old age potentially solves most of those problems, as simply waiting it out till your animals reach maturity isn't feasible. I'm really hoping this is balanced correctly because I think that's going to be difficult, but it is very encouraging that there's something in place to prevent a map just being filled with nothing but maximum age monster bucks and stags running around. That dying of old age should at least kind of help to alleviate that. And these specific mechanics are the biggest thing I'm looking forward to in Way of the Hunter. But while we're here, I wanted to also talk about some of the smaller, but still very important details. First, the blood trailing. In this short clip, it appears as though the blood is more of a persistent spray, rather than big puddles of blood every 10 yards, and from a realistic perspective, I really like it. I do wonder if it's going to be possible to remove the red glow. I think if you wanted to play in the most true-to-life way possible, you'd want that off, but I do understand highlighting it for players to find it, and quite honestly, most of the time, if there even is an option to have it on or off, I'll have the glow on. Just occasionally, I think it could be fun to play without it. Next, I think I have to talk about the ivory tips of the antlers. Not only do these look great, but it also, to me, really shows the level of detail and care that went into their designs. It's a small thing, but I think an important one that at least here looks really, really good. Once again, animal models in general I think look good, but one thing I did take note of was how much detail was on the scope. It's little things like this that go a long way to making you feel immersed into the game, in my opinion, and even if it is just text on a scope that looks more like what you see when you're out hunting in real life, I think that helps. I also thought the bullet path and shot information in the harvest screen were a nice touch. Understanding where your shots impact in order to improve from one to the next can really help players of all experience levels with hunting or hunting games enjoy the gameplay, and at first, I wasn't sure about it, and I got to thinking, it is a realistic factor, maybe not exactly in the way that you see it in game, but when you process a deer, you see the entrance and exit wounds and can understand based on the angle you shot at, maybe elevation, where that bullet impacted and what organs it impacted. I actually like it that they show it the way they do, and I guess it is just that realization that you see some of that in real life in a different way, but still, it's something you can learn from, and they have at least a version of that in the game. I also noticed the fleeing animation, specifically with the red deer in the trailer, was really well done. Again, fairly insignificant a lot of the time. In theory, as long as you're not spooking a bunch of animals, you won't see a ton of fleeing stuff, maybe until a shot, but when you see it in game, I think it'll really help to make it feel real. All the red deer ran in the same direction, you see a herd sticking together, which is what they would do in real life, outside of maybe a predator being right there that could make them scatter. I like that they stuck together, they ran the same path, and there was just a smoothness to the way that they were fleeing that I really thought was well done. Lastly, of course, I don't think this will be any surprise, the trophy lodge. It's hard to say how much customization there will be with it, but trophy lodges are an absolute necessity in my mind for a hunting game. Spending dozens if not hundreds of hours looking for trophies, it creates memories even in a game, and being able to relive those by seeing that animal in the lodge incentivizes going back out and doing it all over again for the same species or for another one. Now there are tons of other little details I didn't touch on in this video, but these are my main takeaways from everything I've seen thus far, from the trailers to the YouTube videos to the Steam page, and there's a lot to like. And as I've said before, when there is clear passion behind a hunting game, it can really take it far, and I feel like the passion shows in Way of the Hunter. So all that said, I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments below. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.